Would you rather work in a sales marketing role at a nonprofit that literally saves lives, but you only make $40K base, or work at a fintech startup that converts Bitcoin into currency for super shady customers, but you make over $75K?
I feel like the price difference isn't enough for me to take that second. Like, that's only $30K. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Come on. Like, if I'm working with a cartel, no thank you.
Hey everybody, welcome to the episode 6 of the Customer Engagement Lab. This was a live stream we did a couple weeks back if you missed it, and we had a lot of fun. We played some games, and we had some special guests join us, and we had some cool takeaways on if you're learning how to podcast and what to expect if you're trying to start one from scratch. So I hope you enjoyed the episode, and make sure to like and subscribe and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts if you can. It goes such a long way. We appreciate you. We love you. Stay safe out there.
Hey Patrick, happy Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, relaxing weekend more than importantly. I saw your LinkedIn post about giving some pitch feedback. I'm not sure if it's too late, but I would love to be a part of that. I work with Apollo.io. It's a B2B database. I'm actually a PandaDoc's customer. That's what we use over here. But if you're both, I understand. I would otherwise love to steal 15, 20 minutes of your time and give you a full pitch of the platform and get some feedback. Appreciate it, man. Cheers.
Cool. So I'm going to stop sharing. If you guys couldn't hear that, I apologize. But basically, Patrick, do you want to give a rundown of what you heard, what you saw, and some of your reactions?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to play this was because I've never gotten a video over text before, and it kind of shocked me. Like, to see that, a number I don't recognize, and then just a video embedded in it, I got a little excited. And I watched the video, and if you're seeing it with us, you see this man has the best mustache of all time, first of all. So my first advice is, if you can, get a fake mustache and put it on with all your video pitches, because I guarantee conversion rates will skyrocket. 2, it felt very personal, and I almost questioned myself, do I know this guy? There's something about him that I felt like was very personable, and I could relate to him right away. And I just started a text conversation with him, and we're just texting every day now, which is interesting because most interactions I have with salespeople, it doesn't turn into that, right? I'm not going to just chat with them over email. And so that's why I think text has a potential cool future in cold outreach, because now we're just chatting, because text is this personal hangout channel, and it allows you to sort of get that relationship with a seller, which makes it a lot easier to interact with them in a business way too, because you're starting to get to know them, which was what I loved about it.
I think another thing you said you liked as well was that when you're sending a video pitch to somebody or a video introduction, to leave the mess ups in there. I mean, as long as they're not too egregious, right? But it comes off as more authentic, as more natural. And so when you have it be too polished, you said that it comes off a little bit too fake or marketing.
Yeah, I love making fun of marketing. Yeah, don't be marketing in your cold outreach. That's for nurture drips.
So I want to know too, you talked a little bit about so that was a good example, right? That was somebody who did a good job. But you said that you also felt in the other videos or calls or voicemails you got, because you said you got 200 calls and texts combined or something like that?
Yeah, I got about 200 total.
So talk to us about that. There was some anxiety from these people that surprised you, right?
Yeah, I'd say the number one theme between all of them was it seemed like there was somebody off camera with just a gun to their head the whole time. Even the voicemail sounded like that person was being forced into it.
Yeah.
It was not good. And if you know how emotion works, emotion transfers, right? Anytime that I'm talking to somebody and I give off a nervous energy, they're going to start to feel it. And that was what was happening with a lot of these calls, which was strange even from a voicemail perspective, right? Why do you think these salespeople were so nervous?
I think that putting yourself out there, especially with no preparation, you're afraid to embarrass yourself, and you're afraid to say something stupid that might get you laughed at or get you in trouble. So it's a fear of self-preservation.
I like that we're talking about this and I have a party hat on. I'm just yeah, if you put yourself out there and you do something stupid, people might laugh at you.
And I think that's a major theme of this show, is that we We want to embrace the creativity, and that sometimes means being stupid or silly and making a fool of yourself without, like we've said, you cross the line when you get canceled. You get canceled for a reason, and we think it's important to put yourself out there and expose yourself and be silly. Mr. Party Time.
Party time. Yeah, I mean, another thing that I noticed was I think that anxiety comes from attachment, and it comes from the idea that you're trying to hit a number, right? Like salespeople are unique in that every activity they do is tied back to some like measurable goal. Most jobs you do, there are going to be actions that you take that are not measured. You're always on a scoreboard in sales. So I think people are always thinking about like, I need to book this meeting. I need to hit my quota. My boss is going to listen to this call, right? Like you're very open in general in sales. Like people are listening to your calls. People are watching you do it. Like there's not a lot of jobs where everyone's just staring at you all the time, like monitoring you, right? So you almost feel like a prisoner at times, I think, with our modern sales system, because people are trying to make sure that there's compliance to a process and that the right activities are going on, of course. But for the seller, that can feel like not good, and which explains the hostage voice, right? When you're talking to people and they need to get the meeting over everything. That's the end goal. There's never a different goal, right?
Their life is in danger if they don't get this meeting, if they don't close this deal. And that leads us perfectly into Professor Travis's developmental psychology lesson of the day. And yes, I brought a whiteboard.
It's almost like we prep for this. Did we prep for this? Oh my God, you drew on this whiteboard.
I brought a whiteboard, and I'm here to talk about attachment styles. So I'm going to move your trucker hat real quick and your sunglasses. But basically, I want to talk about a developmental psychology field that started back in the 60s and 70s. And I need to mute my Slack. But basically, if you're familiar with attachment styles, you're a parent, you're like, yeah, I've heard of it. Back in the day, there used to be the 4 quadrants you fall into, right? Like you were either, let's see, I wrote them down here: secure, dismissive, avoidant, anxious, preoccupied, and fearful, avoidant. And in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of research done to say that you don't just fall into one of these buckets, Patrick. Like when you're chilling on your couch, everything's good. You're not thinking about work. You're feeling pretty secure, right? You're balanced, right? But depending on a different situation you get in, like right now, you might be excited, a little nervous. I know I am. Like I want this to work. You might fall into a different part of the spectrum. And depending on how you were raised as a child, and how your caregiver responded to your needs when you were a little 2-week-old baby crying for milk, or you were a 3-year-old toddler who is in a strange situation they'd never encountered before.
Like situation they never.
That's what they call it. That's what they call it.
It's like I just dropped the baby on this random street corner. Figure it out, baby.
But you have to think through the eyes of a 3-year-old. They're like, I've never seen this before. And so how a parent or a caregiver responds to that child and nurtures that need of when they burst out crying and they get upset, they will develop a neurological and biological response to danger. And depending on if your parents, so on this side of the board over here, you're going to end up dismissive and reserved, right? And again, you don't just fall into this, it depends on the situation. And it's more of like a circle than it is like a continuum. So if you end up on the fearful and the preoccupied side of things, you're going to find people who are combative. They're going to find them agitated and angry. They're very emotional, right? People in CS see this all the time. In sales, you'll see this. I think in sales, you end up seeing people who are a little bit more dismissive and reserved. And if you end up going so far off of this side, you end up coming over here. But I wanted to bring this up and put on my little professorial hat, because you and I have talked about how in sales and in CS, marketing, not so much because you're a little more behind the scenes, that you have this fear, you have this sense of danger, and you react to it in different ways. So what are ways that you see salespeople reacting based on this spectrum that I drew up for you?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Braun talks about it all the time. Like even without using the technical terms, it's usually some sort of anxious attachment where the person needs the outcome or they need the approval.
Yeah.
And it's either one or the other, right? That's either I want this person to like me or I need the meeting, which are both psychological safety mechanisms, right? If you get the meeting, you get to keep your job. If this person likes you, you have a social connection will protect you, right? In general. So biologically, we need as many social connections as possible so we can keep thriving and living, right? So that's what we're looking for. And a lot of the times when people are in a sales call, those are not the two things that need to drive you. You need to be driven by curiosity to actually form a connection with somebody, figure out what their problems are, and then book the meeting based on those things. So almost the wrong biological mechanisms are driving salespeople. And I talk about all the time how sales is unnatural, but salespeople are not untraining their natural instincts when they're on the phone, which is causing not getting the things that they want because they're too attached to them.
And then, not to bring out the whiteboard, but I'm going to bring out the whiteboard again. But if you're wondering, like, the ultimate goal for both you and the person you're selling to, or if you're in CS, you and the customer you're trying to help, is to get them to feel secure. That's what you ultimately want to get them to feel. So you're trying to push them away from reserved and dismissive, or reactive and preoccupied, aka angry as hell, and push them this way. So there are different tactics, and psychologically speaking, one of the ways to bring somebody from dismissive to feeling secure and listening to you and balanced and regulated, and the way you can spot it in them and then encourage them, they're looking for credibility. When they were a child, their feelings weren't validated, and their parent was like, yo, you're overreacting. And so that's why they become dismissive and withdrawn. But if you can give the buyer credibility by making phrases like, hey, it sounds like you've got a lot going on at your job, or empathizing and getting to the point of like giving them some credibility, giving them like, hey, you're the expert. I'm an expert in this, and I can help you become an expert in this. And then from the other end of it, they're seeking reassurance. Like if you're encountering somebody who's really angry, they're seeking reassurance, believe it or not. They want affirmation that you're going to be able to like recognize their anger, and that'll diffuse the tension. So
pretty much just read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. that's all it is, right? Like all of his techniques are built around this.
I'm going to plug my laptop in because I'm at 9%, or else we would have lost
9%. I think that's the grade I got in 9th grade biology, by the way. 9%. It was an AP class, to be fair.
What did you get on the AP test?
0. I didn't take it.
That sounds about right.
I don't need biology. I'm alive.
You don't like test taking.
Yeah, I don't.
That's why you don't put tests in your sales training.
I don't.
All right. So it's 10:45, and we should be getting a special guest to be coming on here in just a minute. It's going to be our podcast producer, Lesley, and we're going to be playing some games with Lesley. So I'm excited for this. We may need to be able to hear her and deal with the echo you're about to hear a lot of too. Can you hear my voice, Patrick? I can hear you.
Now I'm off mute.
Oh.
I'm muting myself because if I don't,
Gotcha. Let's see. I want to talk about important stuff while we're waiting for Lesley, which is we want to make a quick statement. Patrick and I are two guys that like to have a good time. We like to have fun, and we also like to learn about business, sales, marketing, and CS, and apparently a lot of developmental psychology. But we also want to recognize that this has been a pretty rough past 2 weeks in the United States. We've had some pretty tragic events occur, and it just felt kind of weird to not acknowledge the human tragedy that's occurred while wearing party hats and singing. So our heart goes out to everybody. This isn't a political statement. It's just us saying that we're human. We love each other. We love all of you. We care. We want everybody to be safe. So not to be too solemn, but
yeah, I mean, the opposite of solemn. We want everybody to really recognize that everyone is going through something, right? Mm-hmm. And people are reacting to things in different ways. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. It's really important to check on people around you too and see how they're doing. I think a lot of what makes PandaDoc special is that we have a lot of close relationships, and we're able to have that kind of connection and just be like, hey, Reed, how are you doing? Hey, Travis, how are you doing? Just take some time over the next couple of weeks to really check on the people around you. I think the number one feedback I hear from reps is like, not at PandaDoc, but like other places I've worked, my manager doesn't check on me. Like they just look at my number and they don't ask how I'm actually doing. So especially if you're in a leadership position, like today, go and ask your people, how are you doing really? And make sure that they feel comfortable giving you an honest answer. If it's just, I'm doing okay, you need to dig. Like, it's not enough just to accept that. You'd be like, hey, like, what is okay? Like, how are you actually feeling? They're going to appreciate that more than anything, and they're going to respect you more, and it's going to increase your relationship in general. And with everything going on right now, people are having a lot of mixed emotions. So I think it's especially important to do this now.
Thanks, Patrick. Send that text, give that person a virtual hug, let them know you're there. And without further ado, we're going to bring Lesley on the air. Lesley, how's it going?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Yay. How are you? Okay, first of all, I have to say, while I was backstage, I yelled yo really loud and didn't realize you guys were talking about something real serious. So my bad.
It's all good. Nobody heard you say yo, but we're glad that you did say yo, because we're gonna have some fun. So, do you mind kicking off the revenue would you rather scenarios?
Let's do it.
All right. So for all of you out there, we're going to be playing a game. If you've ever played or heard of Would You Rather, you basically get two scenarios, none of which are really that great. And you have to pick one and then just kind of discuss why you picked that one. Some of these are business related, some of them are not. Feel free to chime in the chat. I want to see what y'all think. I know Patrick does too. And all right, Lesley, kick us off.
All right, let's take it from the top. So would you rather be an SDR at a company no one has ever heard of and whose product is barely functioning, but your base salary is $75K? Or would you rather work at a popular SaaS vendor with a base salary of $45K, but you're guaranteed an average of 8 scheduled appointments per week?
It's so specific. 8 appointments guaranteed. How are we guaranteeing these appointments? What happens if we don't get the 8?
Don't worry about the details.
Don't worry
my job to worry about the details.
It's one or the other, Patrick.
It's one or the other.
I think I would rather work at a popular SaaS vendor for $45K and be guaranteed 8 to 10 scheduled appointments per week because of 2 reasons. 1, it's a resume builder. 2, it sounds like the job won't be necessarily as strenuous or stressful, and I can supplement the income by doing stuff on the side.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. A big problem with taking those jobs with the high salaries, but like nobody's heard of them and there's no marketing team and stuff, is they say, oh, you're going to have this 75K or 100K OTE, you know, half your pay is on the bonus, and that's only if you hit the numbers and you're in an unproven market, and then you end up making half. Where at a job where you might get paid less, but the OT is more reasonable because there's like a good product market fit or there's a good marketing team, you're going to make more money anyway. You're going to have a better experience. So clearly that one, but I still want to know how I'm getting those 8 to 10 appointments guaranteed, Lesley, because that seems too good to be true.
Maybe it is too good to be true.
Right.
Let's switch it up here. Let's do something not business related.
Okay.
I love this one. This is my favorite. Would you rather meet a drastically happier or drastically sadder version of yourself? And you have to say why.
You go first, Patrick.
Wait a second. Can we put that in the chat? Because I'm not processing that.
Okay. A drastically happier or a drastically sadder version of yourself?
I think a drastically happier version of me isn't possible. So what I would say is probably the sadder version, because I haven't written poetry in a while. And I feel like if I was really sad or I met a version of me that was really sad, I could get some inspiration and write like the next great work.
Okay.
I like that answer. I think I would go with drastically sadder version of myself because it would make me feel better about my actual self.
That is also my answer.
I would try to help the sadder version of myself. The happier version of myself would probably piss me off, and I'd be like, bro, you're still full of shit. Nobody's that happy.
Happiness is just a construct anyway. When it comes down to it, it's not real. What are we comparing it to?
Says the guy with glitter all over his face right now.
Glitter is also a construct that I love. I mean, cheesesteak is a construct that I also love. We just need to recognize it.
You also
Next
can't
question.
come back from that happier version, you know? Like once you meet the happier version, it's like, man, I'm capable of that. You know?
Would you be depressed? Would it make you even sadder?
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
This
Because
makes
you're
me think of
meeting that really happy version.
it's kind of like the show on Netflix that I forgot the name of with Paul Rudd, where he has a clone of himself
Such a good show.
that Tom Brady makes a cameo in. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's really dark and weird.
The meme came out where he's like, "Look at us, yeah, look at us."
I love that show. We should just live stream that.
You could. Okay. Let's see. Would you rather be a marketing team of one where you report directly to the CEO, whose favorite channel is 40-page ebooks and you have to write them every month? Or would you rather be a mid-level marketing manager with direct reports that give you so much attitude and every one of their assignments are late? And the pay is exactly the same.
Oh, the second one for sure. There's no way I'm writing a 40-page ebook. That's not going to happen. First of all, automatic DQ. But I also love like arguing with people. So if my
Sure.
employees want to argue with me, I'm totally down.
I don't do well with conflict. It's something I'm working on in therapy. I'd go with the CEO that makes me write 40-page ebooks.
You're crazy.
I don't
A 40-page ebook?
I don't want people to be mad at me all the time, giving me attitude. It's just that's a toxic environment. If it's just like a old school CEO, you know, and he's just like, these work, and he's really excited about them, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just write a lot.
This is why you move from sales to marketing.
I think
Because
so.
people are mad at you all the time in sales, and it becomes this weird, like sick, fun thing. And then when you have employees doing the same thing, it just replicates that. And it's like, oh, I never left sales.
That is really twisted.
Yeah, well,
It
you
is
got to
really
be.
twisted.
A shout out to Will Allred, who said Patrick Downs is my SSRI.
9 out of 10 doctors agree.
All right. Moving on. Would you rather get a pay raise 20% in the same role or get a title promotion that gives you more visibility, but your pay is the same?
Pay raise. I'm going 20% pay raise, same title. In marketing, especially, titles are like, they're meh.
Meh.
Sales, they're a little more important. You'd rather have the title?
Oh, yeah.
The prestige?
Yeah, I mean, think
The perceived seniority?
Having a different title allows you to move different ways. Like, you always have the ability to have like whatever action you want to have, but with the title, people start like looking at you differently, which allows you to get into different things. Right? So you're able to progress differently with a different title, especially if you're looking to like climb a ladder or eventually get to a higher raise. That would be the best way to eventually get to more money. And then if you're thinking outside of the organization, having that on your resume and being able to talk, especially about the different responsibilities it gives you, because typically with a title change, it's going to give you different responsibilities.
Oh, people can't hear you. I think you muted.
Yeah, I got kicked out. Can you like?
You got kicked out?
Yeah, my connection.
Oh no. That's okay. I want to try rejoining. I'll send you the link.
Well, I'm in it, but I had like an internet problem.
There you go.
Still nothing.
In the room. Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
I'm back.
Say your beautiful statement again about why you want a title change and not just the pay raise.
Internally, a different title is going to have people look at you differently. If I have a director title, even if I don't have any more pay, I'm going to
We
be
can
able
still
to take
barely
on
hear
different
you. Just a heads up.
responsibilities, and people are going to be able to look at me differently and react to what I do differently. Ultimately, if I'm able to do that, I'm going to be able to climb the ranks or get to a higher level of pay than that 10% anyway, probably over the course of a couple of years. And you always need to play the long game, because people who tend to jump around for different pay, they don't gain enough experience in one thing to truly master it, which mastery really gets you to more money. And I think people are missing the long game there. And then externally, if I leave the company, then I'm going to have all these different roles and responsibilities and projects that I worked on and the title that will allow me to get a much higher paying job potentially in a different industry or at a higher company in my industry.
Damn, that's a really good answer. And I can see that you're thinking much more long game than I am. I think much more short term. I'm just like, I want more money to spend on fun shit so that I have more of a balance in life and I feel less stressed.
And that's like, I'm in sales. I have the fun money anyway.
Damn. Next question.
Sorry.
Next question. This is a good one. Would you rather lose the ability to speak or lose the ability to read? Also, Patrick, I think your mic is still pretty bad, so you can pick the first one.
Make sure you select your audio with the setting of what mic you're using.
Okay.
Talk now.
Can you hear it better now?
Hello, hello.
Not really.
Not better. All right, Travis, you go first then.
Okay. I would rather lose the ability to read because I could still listen to audiobooks and then communicate my lessons verbally and my ideas and express my needs.
I feel like that's kind of unfair, but true.
Did I find a loophole?
You can still listen to podcasts too, so you still have the ability to learn.
I would definitely ditch the ability to speak because you can just sign. If I lose my ability to hear, then I'm screwed. Like if I can't take an input, I could maybe get a surgery, but that's an issue. But I'll just sign. I could. The issue is some people that are deaf can read lips. I can't do that. My brain doesn't process information that way.
Do you know anything in sign language right now?
No, but I can learn. I'm a fast learner, but when it comes to like this stuff there, not gonna happen. You love me.
No, I was just doing A, B, C, D.
Oh. Okay, I'm screwed either way, but still. I want to listen to your sweet voice, and I want to be able to hear my friends, and music is my favorite thing in the world. And if I lost music, it just wouldn't be the same.
Everyone says you sound just fine, by the way.
You sound great.
I know. I sound great.
We have
Cool.
time for one more.
Ooh, let me pick a really good one. Okay, here we go. Would you rather work in a sales marketing role at a nonprofit that literally saves lives, but you only make 40K base, or work at a fintech startup that converts Bitcoin into currency for super shady customers, but you make over 75K?
I feel like the price difference isn't enough for me to take that second one. Like that's only 30K. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Come on. Like if I'm working with a cartel, no, thank you. That's a potential issue in the future. And also, saving lives makes you feel good inside.
35K lets you eat out at restaurants shamelessly.
I could take a side job though. If I'm doing like the nonprofit thing that makes me happy, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do like consulting on the side, or I'm gonna do content creation and find another way to make more money. 30K is not worth that terrible thing. Also, working with Bitcoin, not for me.
Wow, you do have a soul.
Technically.
I'd have to agree. My heart would go with the nonprofit. What about you, Lesley?
Oof. I'd probably say nonprofit too. I don't really want to work for super shady people, so.
Good choice. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for hosting this. You can stick in the channel. I'm going to invite my two bosses. Let me make sure I get them the right links. Andrei and Bethany are going to join us here in a second. And we are going to talk about lessons we have learned from podcasting, including today.
Like apparently
so.
there's an echo in these mic.
No, I think it's doing just fine. What you're hearing is the delay from the audio. This is what our audience hears. But in order for you to hear Lesley and these lovely other people that are going to be joining us. All right, Andrei's jumping in.
Hello.
Hey, Andrei.
Hi. Can you hear
How's
me
it
okay?
going?
Good. It's going
Right.
well.
It's been a while since I've seen that beard.
Have you purchased the beard oil that we discussed, Patrick?
I've purchased so many beard oils. I was in a weird mood and I bought like $300 worth of beard oil.
Did you really?
Yeah, I've been using
Wow.
it the last couple months.
It looks really
That's
good.
It's so
impressive.
much more full, and sometimes when I stroke it, I just like get lost in my thoughts.
Oh, tell Andrei about your revelation on acne.
Oh, Andrei, I found happiness and self-worth and my acne went away.
Wait, what?
I wouldn't dig into it too much, but I think my psychological safety has cleared my skin up.
I'm very happy for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you. You're
Also,
half
I wanted to
responsible.
let you know that when you were talking about your 0 that you got on your AP biology test, I got a 1 on my AP calculus test. So I just want you to know that I can relate.
So if you're
I
here
ended
and
up
you're in
writing-
school, it means nothing. Drop out.
Go ahead and post what you got in your AP scores, but be honest in the chat and let us know what subject it was. I'll go ahead and put mine.
I think we're all just overachievers.
Yeah, that's right. You read that right. I got a 4.
Well, I got a 0, so I beat you still.
AP World History. What's up? Okay. Welcome, Bethany. How are you? I think your mic is muted.
Now.
It sounds beautiful now.
Yay. I tried to use my AirPods, but we all know how that goes. So here we are.
Classic. I blame Tim Cook.
Classic.
Welcome to the show. Bethany and Andrei are my bosses, and they're here to do a live annual review on how I'm performing. Just kidding. Patrick's eyes just got
I'm so panicked. Even though it was a joke, I'm still feeling the panic.
No, they're here to discuss the podcast with us, how it's going, and what lessons we've learned so far.
Okay, much less threatening.
Yeah. Trying to be about that.
All right, let's kick it off with how would you say the live event is going so far? And anyone can chime in at any point.
I think it's great. I think you guys are killing it. I think
Got a
just
cool hat.
you got a cool hat on. I mean, minus the minor, audio issues we had up front, I think we're doing just fine.
Doing Gucci now.
It's
For
just
me
fine,
and
like a
Morgan.
7 out of 10 numerically.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. See.
I feel like the answer I want to say is that it's going just fine, but we could always do better, right?
It's true. My hat needs more glitter.
Spoken
More
like
glitter
a,
next time, please.
Mhm.
like a true director of engagement marketing.
Sean, if you're still in the audience, we need to up the glitter budget.
All right, let's start with I wanted to just break it down for anybody that's listening and interested in podcasting. Maybe you want to start your own podcast. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. One of the first lessons that Patrick and we were discussing this last week of just what lessons we learned, and it was find guests that match your vibe. Let them know, what it's going to be like, and make sure you kind of give an explanation or show them the type of energy that you want for your show, right? So like Patrick and we have like an upbeat, fun energy. We try to be silly and goofy and educational. And so we may not want someone, or maybe we do, who's like the polar opposite of that. But I want to let you, because this was kind of your lesson, so I'll let you do it.
Yeah, when I first started doing this in general, like our first version of this, a lot of the guests that I tried to bring on were just like thought leaders. It was like, oh, here are people that are respected in the community and I think will have something to say. But a lot of them didn't match my vibe. So I was trying to go for this like weirdly personal interview style. And they were just like, what are you doing? But then I found a couple of people really dug it. And then I started noting like what their characteristics were. And then I started realizing they were matching a lot of the same characteristics that I have. So I started reaching out to people specifically that fit that vibe. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that and you want to get on people because they have a great expertise in something, then you probably have to modify the show a little bit for them. Nothing like catastrophically huge, but enough that it makes sense that they're on your show. Like, if you watch The Daily Show when they interview a president, it's still a jokey show, but it's slightly different. The tone changes a little bit. So you have to take that into account as well.
Andrei, Bethany, Lesley, thoughts on guests?
I don't think I have much to add there. I think we've, at least I know, is just like Patrick had said, know your audience, right? Like you know, and you're comfortable with who your followers are and what they care about. And if you don't, I think you're a little in trouble. But I think if you just stick to what you know and what your audience cares about, then those are the people that are going to be the most engaging. not very scientific answer. Sorry, but that's me.
And
I
not
think
enough
for
equations,
me, it
Bethany.
would be not only to find guests that match your vibe, but find people who know what they're talking about and are passionate about it. So, I mean, you could be the smartest, best salesperson ever, but if you're not passionate about it, it's going to come through and people are going to know. So that's, to me, really important.
Yeah, I would. The only thing that I would add is just really being empathetic to the experience from the guest point of view. That's something that I've been very, very, I've admired about the way the two of you have conducted these, because you put so much thought and care in, even in the invitation, the whole experience of getting that guest set up. And we oftentimes don't think about like, what is it like from their perspective? Like it might feel awkward. They might be really busy. You know, this is like the last thing on their radar. But I think just being mindful of how you come across when you invite someone on is equally important to who you invite.
Absolutely.
I had an experience recently where I went on a podcast and it was very strange. Like there was no prep. I got in like 5 minutes early. We had a very brief kind of terse conversation, and then lights went on, and then it was a really pleasant interview, and then it ended, and then I just got kicked out with no conversation after. And like I kind of left feeling like, oh no, like that felt weird. Like I like this person, but I felt like I was almost used for content, and there was no like I don't even think this person knew who I was. It's like I was being put through a conveyor belt to become content. I think a lot of times podcast hosts don't realize they're making people feel that way. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Sorry you felt that way. I mean,
Yeah.
It wasn't you. You didn't do it.
Yeah, I would hate for any of our guests to feel. I don't think that they will, because but I think that's the worst that you can do, is just everybody's spending a lot of time to do this, right? So everybody has to be empathetic to other people's time. So that makes me sad, but yeah.
The last thing I'll add to this, a cool lesson, and I want other people that are listening, if you end up starting your own show or not, my recommendation for avoiding this situation that Patrick was in would be to send them a super personalized invitation. Spend at least 10 to 15 minutes shooting the shit right before you go on recording, and just hang out for a little bit and make them feel comfortable. And then lastly, invite them or send them we send a care package to all of our guests that come on the show. Shout out to Will Allred, who's in the chat right now. And you get a little panda box. We send you some goodies. Nothing crazy fancy, but just something to let you know that we're thinking about you and you're special. So those would be my recommendations, my tips. Take them or leave them for making your guest feel like more than just a conveyor belt item.
What conveyor belt item would you be?
Ooh, I probably would be toothpaste.
I think I would be like a jewelry item because I'm beautiful.
That's true. I think toothpaste because I like to be both practical and helpful.
I'm just beautiful. That's what I'm made for.
Like Troy with his 4 fancy watches at once. Why is no one wearing fancy watches here?
I only got one, and it's an Apple Watch. Shout out Tim Cook.
Shout out Troy. Next lesson we learned. Lesley, I'd like to hear from you on this, because this was something that was really cool. And for anyone, again, who's interested in podcasting, starting their own show, there's a lot that can and should go into naming a show. This was one of the coolest exercises, and Sweetfish Media, if you're looking to start a show, you should hire them, because that's who we use to help us produce our show. So we didn't know what the heck we were doing. And the naming of the show, there was so much that went into it. There's a methodology that we went through and steps. I'll share some of those. Let me see if I can find it.
I want to quote you and say, you told me you were glad I was not involved in this process after I give you a couple examples.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was very glad Patrick was not involved in this, because he would have just been clowning the whole time. And it would not have been very helpful to naming the show. I lost it in my notes, but from what I remember from this naming session was like, okay, we can name the show in a couple of different ways. You have one option where you can name it after your ICP. So I remember the example they gave us was, if your ICP, your ideal customer profile, is CFOs in finance, then you could name your show the CFOs in finance show. Because then if that CFO is looking for a show for him or her, that's the show for them. And it's very targeted, it's very specific. Another way is you can break down some of the responsibilities of your ICP. And that's kind of the route that we went, right? So our show is called the Customer Engagement Lab. We wanted to not just go after salespeople. We were interested in the whole revenue team and beyond. We wanted to go after, we want people that are listening to the show to be in marketing, sales, CS, demand gen, you name it. And what do all of them have in common? They're all trying to engage their customers or their prospects. That's why we named the show that way. So any commentary from you, Patrick, Lesley, Bethany, Andrei?
I tried to name it the VP Sales Software Show,
Nope.
but you shot me down. I was using the framework, Travis. Come on. And maybe there's a lesson that the framework doesn't always work and you have to be a little flexible depending on what you do.
True.
Frameworks are helpful, but it's like you still need to have this elasticity to understand what's going to work and what's going to win.
Yeah. Curious to see what our panelists think.
I think it's about that balance between picking a name that stands out and also being mindful of searchability for people that don't know you, right? Because people are actively searching for different types of content. So having a name that will rank really highly on those search results is important. So you need those right keywords. And Lesley, your team was really helpful in helping us find that right balance between this is what we want to be all about, and we also want a name that is unique, but also something that people will understand and not have to like wonder too much about and maybe just like scroll past because they're like, okay, that just doesn't necessarily sound like what I'm looking for.
Totally. I think that visibility is big whenever picking a name. I also think you want it to kind of match your brand a little bit in a way that's not the PandaDoc show, because that's not, first of all, not searchable, and it's just terrible. But I think that in this example, I mean, you guys kind of threw out a bunch of different ideas and kind of just taking those and deciding who you want your main target audience to be, and throwing a little bit of your brand in there too makes huge difference.
I found my notes, by the way, from the naming session. So make it clear to the listener. So these are just some of the notes I took from listening to you, Lesley, and the Sweetfish team. So you want your title of your show to make it clear to the listener as to what it is, make it appealing to the guest, right? That's why we added lab, because like we're all about experimenting, laboratory. No?
What have we experimented with?
No, we talk about other people's experiments.
I was like, I don't see any beakers.
Stupid.
And
And then give as much search juice as possible, which we talked about. And then, yeah, I think we talked about the rest. Persona, your ICP. And so that was yeah. That, I mean, pretty much wraps it up. Any other final thoughts? Okay, so this is one.
Bethany said something, but she's on mute.
I'm God, classic mute.
I remember my first live stream.
I know, right? So I think.
How about that performance review?
Right.
Damn.
No, I think the only thing I wanted to add here, it was just that I thoroughly enjoyed the session, and I think it's the naming of the show also applies a lot to how I think about creating a content framework for us too, right? Like, you know, Andrei and I have talked a lot about search motivation framework and why that's important. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly encourage you Google it and learn how to think about content differently instead of funnel versus search motivation. So inspiration, education, execution. So I think that was really helpful to keep in mind too, doing that naming session is like, again, what do people care about? What are they going to search for? And what do you hope them to find? So when they're looking to better educate themselves and just find better information. So yeah, that's my last thought.
Well said. And I think it's important to, like, podcasting is you know, a new channel somewhat new, somewhat old, but for the B2B space, for a lot of folks, it is a new channel. And it's important, like Bethany said, that it fits into your overall framework. And it can be hard when you don't have, first of all, it is hard launching a podcast. Like all of us here can attest to that. And doing it and executing it at the level that we're trying to do it with, you know, high impact, high quality, high definition, video, audio, interviews, especially during a pandemic. So
You see everybody's pores. It's stressful, right?
it is.
Being on camera is stressful.
You sweat a lot.
I do sweat a lot.
No, you, the general you, not you.
And also me.
So this is one where I think I want to hear a little bit more from Bethany and Andrei on, which is making a prototype episode and then just running with it and gradually improving your process. This is a lesson I think I really learned from them. A quick note is a lot of times we want to make it perfect. Like that, I ran into that problem where I was like, well, I need better cameras, I need better mics, I need better lighting, I need all this cool studio equipment that I see on the Joe Rogan Experience. And my bosses were like, just create a prototype, even if it's filmed on your phone. And that's how we literally launched this show. Was like, if you listen and go back to our very first episode, and we're only 6 episodes in, but you'll see the quality slowly improving. And that's because it was like, we had an idea, we had a concept, and we believed in it. And my bosses are like, you need to get other people on board so that they can believe in it, and then we'll improve the show over time. And I think that was something that they taught me, was like, don't try to be perfect, just launch something, anything, and focus more on the content than on the production of it. What do y'all think?
I think my favorite conversations from this early on were just one that I think Travis, Yumi, and Andrei had, right? Is we're not going to know anything until we're 10, 15, 20 episodes in, right? But we have something to talk about. We have topics we're passionate about. And we should just run with it. Like, get people that we are friends with, get them to talk about their passions, talk about those topics, and get them out there. And I think the other thing that I think was probably helpful for you guys too was, which I think was good advice, is Travis, I think I remember you telling me a story about you playing the first episode for your fiance, Brenda, and Brenda was like, no, you can't talk about this, or you should talk about that. Or, you know, I think it's kind of going back to that. We talk about that, like telling our grandparents, like, how would we give a value prop of what we do for a living to like our grandparents? Yeah. I think sometimes having people in our personal lives, like, dive into this a little bit and give you some honest feedback. And even when you're first launching something, can be really helpful. So then you feel more comfortable nailing it out of the gate, I would say. But I mean, sometimes that doesn't happen. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. But yeah, I think those were my favorite.
Shout out to my fiance who called me pale and serious in our first episode, and Patrick funny and illuminating.
That tracks.
Yeah, you guys have done a remarkable job so far, and it's exciting to see how this entire production and experience has really kind of started taking a life of its own. When I think about those earlier conversations, a few things stand out to me. Number one, what Bethany said, right? Which is like, we won't know anything until we have consistent content out there for a period of time. And I think it's really easy. I mean, Patrick, something you said earlier about like being in sales and everything having like a number attached to it and a scoreboard. I actually think that it's very easy for marketers to fit in the exact same bucket, which is like, everything that I do has to have a certain measurable ROI or else we have to kill it. And when it comes to most brand initiatives, the ROI doesn't happen until much later down the road. And sometimes it's really hard to even quantify that ROI. Like, how do you quantify the fact that if you have a production out there and you have people applying for jobs at your company, they're like, hey, I listened to that episode or I saw that video. Like, how do you actually quantify that? It's just getting enough people out there, that visibility, where over a period of time, it just kind of compounds. You learn things along the way with content. You know, I like to think about like social channels as an opportunity to get like live or pretty instant feedback in terms of certain ideas, certain themes. And then from there, you just run with it. So I think the thing, Travis, that you and I talked about was like, we don't get to decide if this is good. The people out there will decide if this is good. The market will decide. And we don't know exactly how the market is going to react to this, but we just have to put our best foot forward, put content out there that we believe in, and be authentic about it. And you two have taken that and run with the authenticity. That's why you guys are doing something that very, very few people, at least in our space, are doing, in terms of just your tone, your approach, the questions you're asking. It's phenomenal, right? So authenticity is key. Being humble and realizing that like we don't have all the answers. The market will help inform if we're going in the right direction. And then, everything Bethany said, which is consistency also. Like you got to put in 10, 15, 20 plus episodes before you really start seeing real traction.
Thank you.
I think for me, just to lean into that a little bit, one thing that I've seen a lot of people get wrong in the podcast that I've helped produce in the past is people try to make it so perfect from the start, and they want to have the perfect guest. They want to have like their first guest be like Gary Vee or, whoever it might be. And it's just not going to happen. And I love what Bethany said about like, talk to people that you're friends with about their passions and about what they're passionate about, and let it come through. And then kind of go from there, because that first episode is going to be killer if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable, if it's this huge, big wig person that you're talking to, that first episode is going to come off awkward. It's going to come off not natural. So I think just starting, it's very daunting, but once you start, you're not going to know until you know. So that's my advice.
Yeah, your brain craves patterns, but your brain hates starting.
Wait, did we lose them?
I think so. I
was wondering if it was me.
I like where Patrick was going with that.
I did too.
Here's what he's saying.
Darn it. Oh, man.
Maybe Nate cut off their Wi-Fi.
That's probably definitely what happened. We'll give him like one more second. If not, like we have notes, we can go with the last point that we wanted to make, I think too. But I would rather it come from our lovely co-hosts, the faces of this wonderful show. So, here they are. Maybe they'll be back. Let's see.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Now we can.
There you are.
Can you hear us?
How about now? Hear us okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now I can.
Cool. And this is our pitch for getting our bosses to buy us a Wi-Fi router for this apartment. Oh. There was one more lesson we want to learn while Patrick is trying to reconnect, which is fix it in post. This is the kind of stuff that happens on live shows that you can fix in post. So my lesson that I've learned in podcasting is say what you want to say, have your point of view, and have somebody listen to it before you push it out live. And if it's too controversial, take it out. Or if you're like, I don't really like the way I said that, take it out. And encourage your guests the same way. When they come on and you're kind of trying to get the first 10 minutes of your episode of your interview with them adjusted, let them know like, hey, we can fix this all in post, and we won't launch this or publish it until you're good with it and we're cool with it. Or if there's anything you say that you're like, let's go back and redo it, we can redo it. And I think there was one other, let's see. Oh, take risks and beg for forgiveness later. I would say like one of the biggest lessons I learned with podcasting and doing this podcast. There he is. All right,
let's go.
So one of the biggest lessons I learned with this podcast is to try to differentiate. There are a lot of podcasts out there that follow the same formula. You're one person on a microphone, and you call somebody calls in, they're an expert, and you interview them, and you ask them about their history and their business, and that's the first half of the episode, and then you dive into some topic. and we wanted to do something different. And we wanted to add an element of comedy. I'm a big comedy fan, and I listen to a lot of comedy podcasts. So we swung for the fences, and stuff doesn't always land, and that's okay. I learned something from Patrick early on, which is like, I trust in my values and my core values of who I am and what's important to me. And as long as I do that, I know that the things I say won't be overtly controversial, aren't going to get me canceled, but occasionally might not land the way I intended them to, whether that be a booger joke, which I've said in previous podcasts. Some people thought it was too silly and disgusting, and whatever, that might be the case. Not a big deal. But other stuff, because I was willing to take those risks, really landed. Like we did some fun segments, like the revenue road trip segment. And that was a little risky because we're roasting some people, and a lot of people came back to us, personally messaging us, and we're like, that was hilarious, we loved it. So fix it in post. That's my lesson. What do you want to add, Patrick?
Yeah, just say whatever you want to say. I think you know where your lines are for yourself, right? And I think everybody should be able to trust themselves. Like, you're an adult, you know what your morals are and what you feel like is okay, and you should be operating strictly by your own guidelines, I feel like, when you're recording, because if you don't, you're going to come off as inauthentic because you're not just going for it. And if something does cross the line, just fix it, just erase it. But you're going to miss out on the good stuff if you start putting walls up around what you usually are. So I think in anything you do, you should try to be as authentic as possible and go for it and take risks, because it's going to be a huge regret if you look back in 20 years and you're like, why was I putting on a character at work? You're there 8 hours a day, right? Like, why are you playing a character? And it's going to cause psychological damage, I even think. So just go for it. Right? You'll figure it out. I believe in you.
I also think you'll find a lot more people reaching out to you when you take these big, authentic, creative swings. The number of like personal messages I get from people I worked with years ago, friends who aren't even like associated with PandaDoc, B2B, SaaS, or sales or marketing. They'll hit me up and be like, dude, I love what you're doing. Keep it up. So you'll end up getting so much more positivity. You'll get the occasional hater the bigger you get. That comes with the territory. But team, Andrei, Lesley, Bethany, anything else you want to add to this final lesson that you feel like we've learned about fixing it in post and being true to yourself?
I don't have much.
I would just say,
I think you guys did a great job explaining that.
yeah, I think you guys killed it. I would just say have someone listen to it. That's not you.
Yeah, I similarly, there was a couple of times in my life where I had to prepare for some type of speech or some type of live event, and I had this whole script in mind. I had this whole thing kind of outlined, and usually the night before, I would literally give like a practice run to my family. So like, this is before we had kids. It'd be my wife and our 2 dogs, and they would literally all like line up in the living room on the couch, and I would just like literally give like a 30-minute speech. And when you lose the interest of a Pomeranian, it could feel very soul crushing. So you're like, wow, I need to like really work on my body language. I really need to work on my tempo and my tone. So rehearsing and practicing is really important, but also like giving yourself space and grace for the magic that can happen in those impromptu moments. And that's what I think, like the having somebody else there, especially like the way your format is in the podcast, the 2 of you play off of one another, and not everything is scripted. And I think some of like the best moments, the best sound bites come from those left turns, right, in the conversation. It can reveal something really special. So like, yes, practice, have somebody else listen, but also be open to the magical surprises and then run with them when they're there. Because that's I think where the real fun comes from a content perspective.
Magical surprises is so cute. Such a cute phrase. Are we your little magical surprise?
Mm-hmm.
Very much so, yes.
Yep. I also like the space and grace. I feel like that's the theme of last year and maybe future years. Space and grace. Love it.
What is space and grace? I've never heard that.
Like, give yourself space and grace. What Andrei just said. Like,
Were you not even listening to anything I just said, Travis?
Yeah.
I was envisioning him talking to his Pomeranian, and it was really cute. started daydreaming, and then I heard magical surprises. I'm sorry.
It's all connected, actually.
Yeah.
Pomeranians are magical surprises.
All right, let's do one last, just to say goodbye to everybody. I want to hear from everybody here. I will ask the would you rather. Would you rather, Patrick, receive a full force kidney slap or have your significant other reveal your most disgusting habit?
The kidney slap. 100%. I'm going to keep my secrets.
Okay, Lesley.
Same question?
Same question.
I don't really have any disgusting habits. So I don't really want a kidney slap. So I feel like I would go with disgusting habits.
Okay, Bethany.
Oh God, this is so hard because those who know my husband probably would love to tell my disgusting habits. So, but I'm kind of with Lesley. Like, I don't think any of them are that bad. So I think I'm okay with habits. Final answer.
Final answer, you take the kidney slap?
No, final answer, I take the disgusting habits. Like spouse can.
Oh, okay. Andrei?
I'm going to go with, disgusting habits. I'm biased, but I don't really feel like I have any. So whatever their best attempt is, I'm like, go for it. I'd rather deal with that than a kidney slap.
I am so appalled. I think everyone here is lying. I have so many disgusting habits.
That's why I immediately was like, no, slap me in the kidney. I'll take it.
The noises that come out of my body.
Yeah.
That's just biology, Travis.
On the next episode of Customer Engagement Lab Live, I'll have my significant other come on here and talk about my disgusting habits. No, I'm just kidding. Love you, babe. But yeah, it's like the kidney slap all day. I do super embarrassing stuff when the camera's not on. So yeah. I'll go with that. And then you're like, that's very on brand for you, Travis. We have one final message. Patrick just got a message that is very relevant. Did somebody text it to you?
Ryan posted it in Slack. It came from somebody she knows.
Oh, this
was directed to Ryan and was like, yo, do you know Patrick and Travis? Because the show is tight.
Okay, read the message.
All right. So it says, hey, I just wanted to shoot you a note that I've been listening to the Customer Engagement Lab podcast that PandaDoc does, and it has been all caps great. This is one of the only quote unquote work-related podcasts that I've actually enjoyed. Not sure how close you work on the podcast or work with Travis or Patrick, but they are all caps so great. It's very self-congratulatory, but sometimes you need it, especially when your tech isn't working.
Dude, I needed that.
Yeah, me too.
Live testimonial. I love it. It's great. It's awesome.
We're taking them live.
All right, y'all. Hit us up, labs@pandadoc.com. And let us know if you want to be a guest, if you have segments that you want us to do, if you want me to wear wigs, get dressed up, or Patrick, let us know.
Yeah, I'm a costume guy.
Thank you, Lesley. Thank you, Andrei. Thank you, Bethany. Love you all. Love you, Patrick.
Love you, Travis.
All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a blessed day, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today on the Customer Engagement Lab. For more of Travis and Patrick's chaotic energy, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you would make our hearts smile if you left a super quick rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the show deserves. It'll take you 2 seconds, I promise. Until next time.